Hi everyone, welcome to my kitchen. Today we're doing something that was inspired by one of my favorite YouTubers, Deep South Homestead. Hello Deep South Homestead. They were doing a series called Great Depression Cooking. And when they were doing the series, it reminded me of something my grandfather used to tell me all the time. And I'm sure you heard your grandfather say this too. Waste not, want not. And in my house, we definitely live by that idea. We are a one-income family because me and my husband feel it is important that one of us is home with our children to teach them with our ideals and to show them how to do things for themselves. So we definitely live by the waste not, want not, and the use everything idea and theory. So today I'm starting my series with my first thing I want to show you, and it's how to use your leftover jars of jams and jellies and butters and apple sauces or peach sauces or such to make more for your shelf. We all have kids who pull out jam and jelly and use just almost all of it, and then it gets down to the bottom and they're too lazy to scrape it all out or get that little bit out of the bottom, so we end up with jars. Then if you do what I do, I make all of my jams and jellies and butters myself. And I make them not just for myself, but I also make them for sale. So if I have a seal that doesn't seal, I stick it in my fridge, and once every 2 or 3 weeks, I go through and remake all of it, repurpose all of it, and if it's anything that has been done during this remaking process, it becomes ours and goes on our food shelf for us and the kids and the family. So, today, let's get started, let's have fun, and let's see what we can do. We'll be back. The equipment we're going to need for this fun project is a stainless steel mixing spoon for our jellies and jams, a candy thermometer. If you're new to it, if you've been doing it for a while like I have, you're not going to need a candy thermometer. You want a heavy bottom stock pot. You want to make sure it's heavy bottom, and you want to make sure it's stainless steel. We do not want aluminum when we're doing any of our jams or jellies, because it could create some kind of a chemical reaction and cause a fail. I don't quite understand it, but it does. A funnel, of course. Clean jars, lids, and rings, which aren't out here because I don't pull them out and sterilize them until right before I am going to be putting the stuff in. And then if you have one, a spoon rest so you don't get jam and jelly all over your counter while you're cooking. And then if we're doing butters like I am, which is apple butters, peach butters, pear butters, that kind of thing, because I have a bunch of them in my fridge. And I have some apple sauces also. So we will be doing those, so I will need a crock pot if I have that. The ingredients we're using is all the bits of jams and jellies and butters and everything you have in your fridge. You can also use any partial or open jars or bottles of juice that you have in your fridge from your kids in order to help you use up the juice and in order to help you create the amount of fruit you are going to need for the jam and jelly that you're going to make. You're going to need pectin, sugar, and lemon juice. And then of course the most important thing when using homemade pectin is a pinch of salt. I'll show you how to use that when the time comes. We'll be back. In my crock pot, I'm going to put all of the different jars, partial jars, full jars, unsealed jars of jams and jellies. It's really important to remember that you do this at the most every 3 weeks if it's open jars of butter or open jars of like applesauces. You don't want to let it go any longer than that, especially because it's been opened. It's been exposed to germs. It's had kid fingers in it. It's had kids cross-contaminating the stuff with knives and with... it's a mess. So you make sure that none of the jars are more than 2 or 3 weeks old. And then we just dump them all together. Empty the jars, clean them out, and get them all in there. We'll be back. All of our different sauces and butters are in there. We have applesauce, pear sauce, and then I have apple butter, peach butter, and pear butter. Now, there's plenty of cinnamon and plenty of nutmeg, plenty of allspice, plenty of all of those spices in amongst all the different stuff to give it plenty of spice. And we're going to make like a crisp, since it's pears and peaches and apples and it's got all the spices in it, it's going to end up being kind of like a Christmas fruit butter to eat right around the holidays, to really get you in the mood and get you happy and make you enjoy the upcoming holidays. And we're going to mix it all up. Like I said, it's got plenty of spices in it, and it's still got quite a bit of sugar in it, but just to help it, we're going to add a half a cup of sugar. Then we're going to mix it all up, put it in our crock pot, and let it cook on low for 4 or 5 hours until all of that liquid is gone and has broken down and has evaporated, and we have a nice thick Christmas fruit butter. See, look, all that partial stuff in our fridge. I'm sure all of you out there can even do this with the store-bought applesauces. You can take your open, big plastic jugs of applesauce and mix them all together and put them in your crock pot and add sugar and cinnamon and nutmeg and allspice and give yourself a really, and let it all cook down and get yourself a really good Christmas butter for your pancakes and your peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for your kids, and just, it's so wonderful. Now I'm going to put this in the crock pot and we will be back to check on it in a little bit. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take all of our different jams and jellies and put them together and reboil them down and make new jams and jellies. First thing you want to remember is to make sure you mix flavors that taste good together. You don't want to be making some goofy flavored cranberry grape flavored blueberry mess. You want to make sure that the flavors of the jams and jellies you're mixing together will work together. So that's what we do. We want to make sure also that you never have more than 6 cups of fruit or juice when making your jams and jellies, because it won't boil down properly. Your pectin, liquid pectin, and your lemon juice do not count in the 6 cups of measuring. Only your jams and jellies. So that is what we're going to start with. We're going to take our jams and jellies and we're just going to measure them and mix them. We'll be back when we've got all of them pulled out and ready to go. Alright, we got all of our fruit and juice in here, and it came to just over 5 cups, which is perfect. So then we're going to take our pectin, and all that cloudy stuff on the bottom of the jar is what we want, so we make sure we shake it up and we put it in. Now again, I use homemade pectin. So, if you are using store-bought pectin that requires you to boil it and do whatever it is, I can't help you. I do not use store-bought pectin. I could not even begin to tell you anything other than 1 jar of my pectin is equivalent to 1 pouch of the pectin from the store. That's all I can give you an equivalent of, because you use the pectins completely different. Alright. All the fruit, pectin in. We don't need to add too much sugar to this at all, because there's already lots of sugar in here from the jams and jellies. But we're going to add half a cup of sugar just to help with the chemical processing of what we want. And then always, 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 especially with homemade pectins, 3 tablespoons of your lemon juice. And then we're going to mix it up. Put it on the stove on medium heat. And bring it to a boil. And we'll be back. We are back and we are steamy. Okay. We're ready for the next important. Let's see if we can get that to clear up. Hey, looky everybody! Okay, we're ready for the next important thing. It just started to boil, so we want to add that pinch of salt. It's really important to remember that along with the lemon juice when you're making and using homemade pectin. And then we just stir it. I started boiling, or I turned it on 6 minutes ago, so it's only been boiling for about a minute. I turned the camera on 6 minutes, or the kettle on 6 minutes ago. Boy, what a mess I am. Just stir it and let it keep boiling. And we're going to keep letting it boil, and we're going to keep stirring it every minute to 2 minutes. And we'll be back. Alright. Okay, this has been boiling for 13 minutes. I'm just going to keep stirring it, keep boiling it. This is going to be more on the jelly side rather than on the jam side, because there was more jellies than jams. So it's going to look a little bit foamier when it's boiling, whereas jams don't look quite so foamy when they're boiling. We're still going to look for sheeting in the boiling process with jelly, but it looks a little different with jelly than with jam. Don't worry, I will walk you through the process step by step. And remember, keep it on a medium heat. We don't ever want it above a medium heat because it can very easily scorch. Anything above a medium heat is more likely to scorch. You want to stir it on a regular basis and let it take its time. We will be back. We are at the best point in the jelly process. It's starting to foam up fast and quick. It does that right when it's near the end and it's getting to the point of ready to become jelly. It's at a boil that won't stir down until this is the magical part. You quit stirring it. Then it'll go down a little bit. Hey, give it a minute. Here it goes. Ooh. We actually might almost be at the full jelly stage. Like I've said before, it can be a minute difference between the almost jelly and the full jelly stage. If it was almost jelly, the boil would have gone down, but this is very, very much, pretty much jelly, so the boil won't go down so easily. It's still a little liquidy. See how it still stays on the spoon and drips off a little fast, and it doesn't stick to the spoon so well. We're going to let it keep boiling, but it's not going to take too long from this point. Only a few minutes. We've been boiling for less than 20 minutes. Those are my beans in the background for dinner. Yum. We're getting there. We're almost there. See how it's starting to already show a change? Just in a minute. The drips are forming more of a sheet. The boil will not go away at all, even when you stop stirring. Now, if you are unsure of yourself, this is almost done. I'd say another minute. If you're unsure of yourself and you're a beginner, the best way to always find out and tell is just use your candy thermometer. And let this sit in there for a minute. At this point, we pretty much want to be stirring at all times, so I'm going to use the candy thermometer to stir. Make sure you don't bang your candy thermometer around too hard, because you could crack it and break it in your jam or your jelly, and then it's a waste. The jelly's climbing up the bowl more. We're getting so close to done. We're at 225. It probably needs another 5 degrees, which is maybe a minute or two. Your candy thermometer is always your best friend if you're a beginner. Don't be afraid. It's going to just keep climbing up and boiling. But if we had it at a higher temperature than a medium, it would already be burnt and scorched to the bottom. That's why we especially keep our jellies on a lower temperature. Now you see how the end drips go really slow? When we get to the end of the coming off of the spoon, how the drips go slow and kind of form a single drip and come together. That is sheeting. And as my grandma used to always say, if you think you're done, give it 5 minutes. If you know you're done, give it another couple minutes. And see, even that extra 30 seconds has made a difference. There we go. See how the drops are all coming together to slowly come off? and sheet off instead of just dripping off. That is done. I'm going to turn this off and let this cool for 5 minutes, and I'm going to dish up my family's dinner. We'll be back. This has been sitting and cooling for 5 minutes. We're going to get ready to dish it up into our jars. But again, a trick to know whether or not you've done it and you've got it set and you've boiled it properly is if you tilt it, see how it wrinkles and has that skin? It's done and it's set, and you're going to get jelly once it's been sitting. Alright, we're going to dish this up into our jars and we'll be back. We have our cleaned and sterilized jars. I baked them in an oven on 250 degrees for 20 minutes. You only have to do it at 215, but I overly do everything to make sure that there aren't any problems. And then after we get them dished up, we'll wipe the rims, put our lids and rings on them, and process the jars. We'll be back. It's been 10 minutes, and I've gotten everything ready to go, and we got our clean washcloth, cheesecloth, to wipe the rims and the edges here, and the threads, but hot. All these jars are hot, the jelly's hot, but there's one thing I wanted to show you. It's been 10 minutes, and it's already started to set quite well. So all these jars of jelly are definitely ready to go. I'm going to put the lids and the rings on and process them in a water bath canner for 20 minutes. And then we're going to check on the apple butters, apple, peach, pear, Christmas butter, and see how that looks. We'll be back. Look how beautiful and dark and rich. That is all that peach butter, apple butter, and pear butter, and a couple jars of half-eaten open applesauce for my kids. And no, my kids don't just eat out of the jars. They open up a jar and put it in a bowl, because the 8-ounce things of applesauce I make, it's a lot of applesauce at once for a kid. So I love the little applesauce jars, because if you've got small children, one of these little applesauce jars will break down into 2 for your small kids. It's perfect. My children have a bad habit, however, of opening a jar, pulling out their half, putting it in the fridge, and then opening a new jar when they want one. So I just add it, and like my grandfather said, waste not, want not. We take everything and we put it together and we make more. So we're going to take this perfect, beautiful apple butter. Well, it's a Christmas butter now. Apple, pear, and peach. And then it had all of the cinnamon and nutmeg and allspice from the apple butters and the pear butter and the peach butter. So when we mixed it all together and let it cook down, all the water left, and all we're left with is this beautiful, beautiful Christmas butter. We're going to can this and get it all ready for processing, and we will be back. Here we go. I've baked my jars on 250 degrees for 20 minutes, and we're just going to fill them up and get them ready for processing. This looks so good. And then after we're done filling them, we'll wipe the rims, put the lids on them. Look how thick that is. Oh, man, these jars are hot. Hot. Very hot. Alright. I am going to fill this up because I'm starting to get ready to have to scrape on the thing. So I'm going to fill these up and we will be back. We have all our jars filled and we're going to wipe, clean each of the rims. New lid. Ooh. Ring. I'm going to get all these done before I try to put them in the water bath canner so they're not so warm. This also gives you a chance to inspect all of the jars. Make sure that there's no dings, chips, or cracks. Ouch. In any of the jars so that we don't have fails or any such when we're canning. We'll be back when we get all this done. There we go, all of our jars are packed, have been wiped and cleaned, have had the rings and lids put on them, and have been put in the water bath canner. I'm going to process these for 25 minutes. I'll bring you back at the processing stage so you can see what that looks like. I guess I wasn't recording when it first started processing. That's processing, a good heavy boil. This is the end of processing. It's been going for 25 minutes and I'm going to turn it off, lift off the lid, and let it sit for 5 minutes. Steamy. Woo. Let it sit for 5 minutes and then we'll lift the jars out and onto the counter to cool and seal. We'll be back. Here we go. It's been 5 minutes. We're going to pull our jars out of the canner. I heard some of them popping in the canner. We're just going to pull everything out and let them sit and seal and cool. And then we will have turned all of the jars. Oop, did you hear that pop? Oop, there was another one. We will have turned all of those partial jars of stuff in your fridge down and into smaller shelf-stable jars for your cupboard. No worries about waste. We'll be back when all of these are out of the canner and cooled and have their rings off. Hi everybody. Whoop. And back you up. Alright, there we have it. Everything we got out of all of the different jars of jams and jellies we had in the fridge. Now, like I said before, you can do this using store-bought jams and jellies or store-bought applesauces and things like that, so that you don't waste what you have and you use everything. Because as our grandfathers used to say, waste not, want not. I ended up with 8 jars of applesauce. Well, apple butter. 8 jars of apple butter. and 4 jars of what my daughter affectionately called giggleberry, because it has like 13 different types of berries in it, all mixed together, and they all came out to taste so interesting and so good. I thank you for coming along with me on my adventure in my kitchen. And if you enjoyed the video, leave a thumbs up down below. I hope to see you the next time in my new series of how to use everything. That way you too can make the most of every penny you have and every moment you have with your family. And remember, everybody, stay positive. Bye.